of our program today. The first segment dwell on the opening ceremony. And this second segment is a technical session where we'll be looking at the papers that we presented today. We have 3 papers, and I'm also happy to announce to you that the resource persons are also here. So 3 papers will be presented. The first paper will be presented by Patrick Nyam. Incidentally, Dr. Daniel Adamu, who wrote this paper, couldn't make it. So he was asked that Patrick Nyam would take the paper. And okay, so I just been informed that the order of the presentation will be, the first paper will be taken by Dr. Bolabo. The paper was written by Professor Ayo Olaju Yegbe, and the title of the paper is Fiscal Planning Services Beyond the Preparation of Master Plans and Schemes. This will be taken by Dr. Olabo. That will be the first paper. After that, the second paper will be taken by Dr. Meshach Ojile, and the title of the paper is Developing Technical Skills in the Provision of Environmental Services for the Oil and Gas and International Finance Corporations funded projects in Nigeria. That will be the second paper. And then the third paper will be taken by Town Planner Patrick Nyam. The paper was written by Dr. Daniel Adamu. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. And the title of the paper is Involving Appropriate Synergy with Ministries, Departments, Agencies, Political Heads for Effective Delivery of Projects in Nigeria. Now, this will be the framework for the presentation. Dr. Bolabo will come up and take the first paper. He has 40 minutes to talk to the paper. We'll listen to the paper, and after that, now move on to the second paper and the third. At the end of the day, we'll put down our questions, our observations, and all that. The real technical session to discuss all of these papers will take place tomorrow. But for now, I call on Dr. Bolabo to come and make the presentation of the first paper. Round of applause for Dr. Bolabo.
All right, so good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are not going to waste time now. As you can all see, this paper is a presentation of Town Planner Professor Ayo Olaju Igbe, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. Yeah, bring it. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here today, but for a very good reason. Yes, he has just been appointed as the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Fortune University, and he resumed 2 days ago. So it was difficult for him to take excuse that he wants to travel. Therefore, kindly know that this is a presentation of a professor, but the presentation here is by a doctor. So don't mind if there are issues that are not perfect, but I will try my best to give you the best. This paper is Fiscal Planning Services Beyond the Preparation of Master Plans and Schemes. So you will be wondering, what else do we want to discuss? Hello. Please, I will have perfect. Yes, let us be. Thank you. So, we'll be wondering what again do we want to talk about? Especially for our very senior persons that always find it imperative to join us from time to time. They are not tired. Thank you, Past President. Thank you, all of our senior colleagues. They are always joining us. So, but yes, the discussion on town planning must continue and it must be consistent. So, let us see what we can gain today. I will just give you the outline quickly. We are going to look at historical background, definitions of master plan, schemes, roles and challenges. We are going to look at expanding the scope of physical planning services. We are going to look at the role of technology and innovation in physical planning. We are going to look at the challenges facing physical planning services in Nigeria. Then we are going to examine strategies for enhancing the effectiveness of physical planning services. Of course, the topic itself, we need to look at the frontiers, emerging frontiers in physical planning. And then we come to a conclusion, and of course, a call to action. We are all familiar with our history of town planning. So historically, town planners cannot do without telling a form of story. We know that physical planning started several centuries ago to manage land use, infrastructure, and urban growth. In fact, historically we were told that physical planning arose because of what? Health challenges. This we learned. So we can trace our history to ancient medieval period, 3000 BC and 1500, between that and 1500 after the death of Christ. We remember the stories of the Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, where we traced our civilization history too. And the kind of planning that we had at that time, this grid system, angle 90 degrees of roads and so on. And of course, we won't forget in a hurry the Roman towns. These were examples of how we started. Of course, later on, towns organically evolved around castles, churches, trade routes in Europe, and then we had unplanned settlements. We also remember the Renaissance time, 15th to 19th century period, characterized by industrial revolution. And of course, having factories located, around, developments coming around factories, which became a problem, So we all remember this. And of course, the emergence of the philanthropists, Ebenezer Howard, the City Garden, and so on. There were many at that time. Just trying to bring us, these are things we know, but we must trace our history. And of course, what happened? They were able to attend to the issue of zoning, high-rise buildings, highways. If you go and check again, Le Corbusier, he gave us all that at the architect. And then we have this post-World War II, the era of Reconstruction. So all these things were the issues that shaped planning. But we can also come back and come down to the contemporary planning periods. In contemporary planning periods, we are looking at how are we able to integrate sustainability, smart cities, climate resilience, participatory governance, balanced economic environment, and social concerns. But we will also be in order to go back to that definition. For many of us here, that definition will be crammed about 5 lines. But there are keywords in Lewis Kibu's definition that you must not miss. So, from Lewis Kibu 1969 to Faludi 1973 to Mabogunge 1980, and then definitions by UN Habitat 2020 later, you will see that some things are consistent. That physical planning involves creation of orderly environment. It is the orderly of land uses, the ordering of land uses. This with land efficiency, land use efficiency, economic growth, aesthetics, sustainability, quality of life. Let me add, good quality of life. These are issues that now actually revolve around fiscal planning. And then we move on to creating strategic organization of the built environment to enhance economic development, where we are looking at that definition down. For what? To create social well-being, environmental resilience, while addressing all the challenges of urbanization, climate change, and technology or technological advancement. Permit me to say that a traditional tool for addressing the goals and objectives of planning is the master plan. That was what we were trained with, the master plan, and its associated development schemes, or call it plans. There are different names, we are coming to that. Therefore, this lecture, we examine how physical planning services transcend the preparation of master plans and development schemes. It will explore the breadth and depth of physical planning services. It will go ahead and identify the new frontiers, and then address contemporary challenges militating against the diverse services offered, of course, capable of being offered by physical planner. And I will invite you to join me on this journey. At the end of this lecture, participants in this hall and those of them joining us by Zoom should be able to understand the scope of physical planning services, critically assess the limitations of traditional master plans and schemes, explore alternative and contemporary approaches to physical planning, evaluate the role of technology and innovation in modern planning, apply knowledge gained here to real-world planning scheme and improve practice. That is what we want to achieve. Again, we talked about our history. We are familiar with master plan itself. Notwithstanding that, we agree that over time, there can be some misconception by some people that master plan is about drawings alone. No. We all know that a master plan is a blueprint. It's a document consisting of both. Providing specific policy, measures, and strategies to address current urban planning. Of course, either urban or rural. It guides the structural growth of cities, towns, and rural environments over a defined period. So the characteristics of the master plan are distinct. Yes, it's a plan. Yes, it's a document. To be specific, it's a policy document. But furthermore, it is guiding future development. Therefore, traditional role of development schemes and planning can be can be viewed under the following. You will know that it provides specific intervention within the master plan itself, focusing, we look at master plan now, and then the schemes. So it provides specific interventions within the master plan, focusing on particular areas where you are trying to distinguish. Of course, the schemes aims at solving specific urban problems, sometimes overcrowding. It can be traffic congestion, degradation, etc. You will agree with me that when you're talking about the planning schemes, there could be more detail with timelines. Sometimes we attach budgets and then implementation strategies. So under that, you will see we have structure plan, we have the subject plan, we have the action area plan. All these are familiar environments for all of us. But in addressing today's lecture, theories and concepts, there are theories and concepts that shape the master plan approach. So you can take your mind back to the traditional master planning approaches, such as rational planning theory. It's very idealistic, technocratic, it's sometimes biased, limited, it's not flexible. Sometimes you have exclusion of public. The modern master planning integrates participatory, adaptive, and sustainable planning methods by leveraging on theories like incremental planning theory, advocacy planning, systems theory, communicative planning theory, and sustainable development theory. Some will be surprised at that. But in the last 15, 20 years, we have been discussing sustainable development at different fora. And there have been people who have come up with theories related to this. The key requirements for preparation of master plans and schemes, you can look at it. The process of preparing modern master plan and scheme requires legal and institutional framework. Whether you are a consultant or you are a regulator, you know that we always review relevant laws even when we are dealing with master plans. At national, sometimes international, but most times locally. What are the local plans related in the preparation of such master plans? So it has legal and institutional framework. Master plan involves collaboration among planners, government and the public. It cannot do it alone. From the beginning of the preparation of a master plan to its end, you will see different engagements cutting across planners themselves, government, public, and other professionals. So you see people engaging quantity surveyor, land surveyor, engineers to be in a team for master plan preparation. Of course, an understanding of the demography, economy, environment, social equity, and community needs. All these are key components of preparing a master plan. I added something. I said collaboration with other professionals. Because you cannot have a master plan where you don't have the inputs of engineers, meteorologists, surveyors, even economists, political scientists. Because we are all dealing with both physical, social aspects of the environment. And it has its own challenges. The master plan itself has its own challenges. We are all familiar with the fact that it is the static nature versus dynamic growth. Most master plans are prepared even before it is submitted to Federal Ministry of Environment. And the time between Federal Ministry of Environment will consider, approve, and make it available at the state they want to present to the governor. Sometimes 7 years is out of it. And you are saying you are doing a master plan for 25 years. When will the implementation start? So, static nature and things have changed. This would have changed. I remember in those days when we are talking about master plan, we are not always familiar with the issue of communication mast and its impact and the fact for us to consider it in our plan. But today, they are everywhere. That's the dynamic nature of planning matters. Does not accommodate informal settlements and spontaneous urban expansion. We are, even as planners, as we are trained, we are also very rigid. No, this is how it must go. Before you can say there's a good plan, there must not be any cross junction, there must not be any Y junction. You know, all these things that we are taught at the preliminary level, we want to implement them exactly. So we find it difficult to even bend and accommodate, some issues, especially the areas of informality. Hello? As of today, I have not seen a master plan prepared that considered motorcyclists. Are we not surprised that in this master plan, this is the space created for motorcyclists? But can we deny the fact that they are not available and in fact overwhelming our transport system? In Europe, master plans prepared considered spaces for bicycle riders. Why are we not considering for motorcyclists? I think those are questions you can jot down to review later. So, our schemes, we prepare them, they are not taking into consideration dynamism. Now, the Okadas, either by force or by policy, in some states are being phased out, but they are being replaced by tricycles. What space are we also creating for tricycles? No parking space for tricycles. These are issues. So when I talk about the issue of informality, we are not, the master plan, we not accommodating that. Challenges in implementation and enforcement. Master plans, finally when it arrives, maybe 7 or 8 years after, you'll be hearing issues, hello, please, silence, please. You'll be hearing issues of finance, paucity of fund, you know, priority of government is not there, things like that. They're very common. Finance, paucity of fund is a common word in government balance. Weak institutional framework and weak enforcement mechanism. Even when we have a master plan, we find it difficult to implement and enforce it. Yes, this is a green area. Oh, but now somebody is coming and saying, look, this green area is not needed for school. And government will start weighing it. How much will it come in? What is the assessment of the school? Things like that. They will start and they will give directive to director to go and look at how that place can be approvable. Political interference, same thing. There is difference between master plan, its implementation, and political will. That is one side. Apart from political will, we are not talking about political interference. You tell somebody there's a master plan for this place. I say, yes, okay, that's great. Can you give me a copy? You bring the copy. He says, oh, you need this chunk of land for open space? No, but we need money. The investors are coming from China. No, you hear words like this. Interference. They will ask you to go back and see what you can do. And my senior directors are here and deputy directors, they will know what they do next. Lack of control by the regulators. We are not in control. There are people that will even be at enforcement places and they will be called to leave the place. We have had cases like that. So we are not in control. So these are some of the challenges militating against our master plan. Of course, we look at the socio-economic and environmental gaps in traditional planning. These are this master plan. Inclusivity issue, prioritize physical infrastructure over environmental issues. And the world is changing. The world is changing to environmental issues must supersede infrastructural issues. Social inclusion and resilience really have the gap, one of the gaps, really have reflect the need and aspiration of you. We do master plans and we don't even do proper engagements. You have a master plan project. Your visit to the place was 4 times. The first day to go and see the Okabiesi and traditional rulers. The second one is where you are bringing the session report. The third one during the stakeholder meeting. You know that kind of stuff. But the goals and vision of the people must be adequately captured. This is one of the challenges we find there. I mentioned the other time the issue of inflexibility of addressing emerging challenges. I will not go into that again. I will only make one point there. I mentioned one before, the issue of communication mass and its regulation. Do you know that we have different, the NCC regulation on the setback for communication mast is different from the, what's the other body now? We have NCC regulation and we have, is it NAMA? The setback, there's a difference between the setback approved by NAMA and the one approved by NCC. But why? Because as town planners, just this is a digression, as town planners, we fail to do our work. We are the one that can give adequate information and standard about a setback for mast, communication mast. These are issues in several places. Somebody is saying 10 meters. And you know that we can have 10 meters gap between 2 residential buildings. These are challenges. These are discussions for you people later in the day. The GIS department, because I have this one now, advances in technology, GIS, IoT, big data, smart city solution, provide opportunity for real-time data-driven. Yes. And what is the challenge here? Even in the departments they are not even available. GIS departments are not available. Of recent, many states are trying to come up with that. But how many town planners are interested to go to that department? We are coming to that too. Furthermore, to challenges of master plan preparation and implementation is fragmentation and lack of coordination. Lack of adequate coordination between government agencies, private sectors, and community. When you have a master plan that fails to integrate policy of the government with business in town,
It's a big issue, a big gap. Regional and local planning efforts not harmonized. Most times, we don't factor in that there are regional markets in a place, and in every 14 days, many more people come from outside the region to that place we are dealing with regional issues. And I've mentioned that before, public-private partnership and often underutilized. No, I have 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes paper. It's 40 minutes paper now. Yeah, so it's 40 minutes paper, I know. Thank you. So technological innovation, the rise of smart, so we are looking at these challenges first. Final word on this traditional, the master plan and issues. Physical planning must address social inclusion, equity, and climate change. These are things that are living with us now. Master plans may only set the framework of physical planning development. They are only a part of much broader planning process. Physical planning services must therefore evolve beyond mere preparation of master plans and development schemes to include broader integrated and adaptive strategies that addresses contemporary urban and regional planning challenges. Urban planning should therefore be more dynamic, adaptive, and inclusive. Planning model that responds to the needs of modern cities and regions. We can have that. And looking at all this, we are here to look at expanding the scope of skill planning services that will ensure the urban areas are resilient, inclusive, and well managed. And in doing this, we have to leverage on the following: urban governance and policy formulation. We need to integrate economic, social, and environmental policies at all levels. I said this some time ago, you cannot have plans that are not acceptable to the Ministry of Economic and Planning in your state. There will be gaps. Fiscal planning must have an integration with economic planning in every state. We need to coordinate with ministries, local government areas, for our regional authorities, strengthen existing regulatory framework for development control, etc. Compliance with zoning laws, building regulations, prevent land disputes, and ensure security of tenure. All these are things we must imbibe. And I say, deliberate policy to regulate land costs in urban centers is key. In MAKURDI, the state capital, a piece of land of 1,600 meters, government land, is going for 120 million. Now, if you are a government official, it means you can never live in the urban area unless you stay. We must be deliberate. There must be a deliberate policy. Yes, where do you get 120 million as a civil servant? And you're supposed to live within, are you supposed to live in the rural area? No. There must be a deliberate government policy to regulate land costs in different states. And we must not shy away from this. Land surveyors are interested in having more land and what? Increased cost. But as planners, we know that an urban area is not complete when it is not integrated. Civil servants should be there, informal settlement. No, it's not meant for the rich. Expanding the scope of physical planning. Another one, sustainable development and environmental planning. We need to integrate climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies, integrate green infrastructure, renewable energy, design cities that are resilient to floods, drought, and extreme weather. Introduce disaster management strategies and resilience. I don't know what is wrong with us. I was in the Netherlands for some time to go and study. And I found out that everywhere you see go is water. But there are no issues of water taking them away. The story of Niger State few weeks ago of 500 people missing should be a big challenge to us as planners. We already know the areas that are below, and then plan for it. Ask them to relocate. We should not be comfortable with every year giving stories and then sending mattresses to them. Somebody's house will be taken away, you are sending mattress. Where will the person put the mattress? So we need to do this. We are cutting down trees, we are not imbibing green planning. We are not doing that. We just talk about climate change as subjects and conference papers. Strategies for climate change mitigation start from planting of trees. We are not planting trees. Even as town planners, we are getting your house, everywhere is concreted. Somebody said he's afraid of snakes. Snakes are part of the ecology now. Yes. Yes. Expanding the scope of physical planning services, we need to look at infrastructure and service delivery. Our transportation system can better be done with technology. Introduce inclusive housing policy, upgrade informal settlements. They are part of us. Urban water management system, waste to energy solution, and there's money. People are not going around picking plastic on their own. There's money in it. We can do it better as planners. These are areas we can still diverse to. I'm telling you. 8 bottles of water produces 1 t-shirt. 8 bottles of plastic bottle water produces 1 t-shirt. There are companies in Lagos doing that. We need to look at community participation and stakeholders engagement. As I said earlier on, we must plan with the people. It should be a dot-bottom approach planning. We need to look at smart cities and technological innovation. This is critical, very critical. We need to adopt GIS application to expand the horizon of physical planning. You cannot do any serious planning now without these tools. We need to adopt data-driven urban management system. We need to promote e-governance, digital planning tools, especially planning permits, applications, and approval. Must I have physical contact with the approving officer? Must I? I should be able to sit down. These are the regulations. I submit all the necessary documents, pay the necessary assessment fee, and I get my approval. It's possible. My final word on this. By integrating governance, sustainability, infrastructure development, community participation, and technology into planning frameworks, physical planning can effectively address the challenges of the 21st century. And we know them. Flooding, climate change issues. If the fans here goes off now, or power goes off now, all of us will leave this hall. We will not be comfortable. So infusing new technology, contemporary emerging issues into plan preparation is therefore a major challenge with the Nigerian physical planning. If we have identified the gap, we cannot leave it like that. What do we do? Technology has a role to play. Geographic information system, GIS, and remote sensing, very available. So mapping and spatial analysis using GIS, it enables planners to visualize spatial data, assess land use patterns, and predict future growth trends. That's our job now, to plan for the future. But if you have tools that can assist us, why not use them? The RS technology techniques are critical to environmental and hazard management. We need to map hazard area and make plans that will mitigate them. Mapping. The people that want to meet in government does not understand our English. But when you give them maps, mapping, okay, graphs, they appreciate it better. So GIS is very important. GIS assists in site selection and land suitability, analysis for infrastructure, housing, and so on. The IoT, the Internet of Things, usually we call it is a collective network of connected devices and technology that facilitate communication between devices and the cloud. This IoT uses sensors and real-time data to manage traffic, waste collection, energy consumption. And in Lagos, I'm calling to a case study. I hope that they will not collect the mic from me there. When you get to Lagos, there are places where the Danfo driver will be coming. As they are approaching the junction, because it has camera, they will bring their head inside back. Let's use technology to achieve our aim. The big data analysis large data set on mobile phones and social media and advanced sensors, and enables planners to understand mobility patterns. How do we move? Economic activities, where are they? And demographic changes. How many people are in so-so place at a time? And what do we need to provide for them? There are some places in our cities that do not have a single health center, not because they don't want to have, but there's the development are so wide and they are left unplanned to the extent that nobody wants to release any plot of land for a health center. So we need to map all this. Use of digital planning tools and public engagement on platforms. I will just say we know them, yes. Visual reality, VR and augmented reality, they are all 3D, urban modeling and simulation models that some of us here have been using. And we must continue to use and teach others. Participatory GIS and online mapping enable citizens to contribute local knowledge and preferences for planning decision. Now, when you want to do survey, you know, you can imbibe things like that. I'm coming to it there. Kobo Collect. As you are doing your Kobo Collect, it is giving you analysis real time. On the feed, it's telling you the number of participants, the number of this, and so on. And it is not difficult. Of course, e-governance and digital permitting, I've mentioned that, I will not go back to it. Sustainable and resilient infrastructure planning. I talk about climate simulation models, GIS, and use of AI. We should not be afraid. Some people say that AI will take our job. No, AI is to assist us to do our job better. Computers in those days will say garbage in, garbage out. If you are not knowledgeable in planning, you cannot manipulate AI to assist you. So we need that. Smart water meters, AI-driven water collection, and other innovations improve urban sustainability. Let me give you a typical example. You know, those days they are trying to do the judicial complex. That's the biggest project that the governor is handling for now. About 12 courtrooms. And I was asked to come and do the AIA and so on. In the course of doing the scoping, one lawyer just rose. I was like, what would this person want to say in my mind? Just said, please, can I ask a question? I said, what? He said, what provision did you make for control of termites? I was like, termite, courtroom. He said, most of our files are always eaten by termites. I didn't expect that question. But quickly I wrote, I said, well, in this plan, there's ICT complex, and I will suggest them to store their plans, their court materials in the cloud. I was able to answer, but when I got to him, I was like, look at this one. I didn't expect that. He said the most difficult problem they are facing in the current courts now are that 5-10 years after, you cannot find evidences. It has been eaten by termites. So, cloud computing, you can store issues in our vital data. Final word. The integration of technology in physical planning will transform the discipline beyond traditional master plans and schemes. That's the fact. By leveraging technology, planners can create more resilient, efficient, and inclusive urban environment. However, there are challenges. Many of us are not interested. We don't know, or we don't want to know, but we must know, because we will go to planning itself is dynamic. You can be left behind. And cities 2030 is saying that no one should be left behind. So you have to brace up. Quickly, I will go over the selected case studies. Singapore. Some of us are traveling every year. In Singapore, there are airports where you will not have any interaction with a human being. From checking it and going out, you will not see a human being. Everything is digitized. You ask him, do you want to drop your bag? You say, yes, drop your bag. Something takes it, weighs it, and so on. You will not see human beings attending to you. Kigali, Rwanda. Inclusive and resilient urban planning model. Fine, but what I want to say about them is that they ensured that you can even take your lunch in Rwanda, Kigali. You can take your lunch sitting by the drainage. Yes, the city drainage system. You can sit down and take your lunch here. It's so clean. They are not doing this one physically alone. They are bringing in technology. I've mentioned the issue of Rotterdam. Instead of Rotterdam to give setbacks for developments to come, they said give room for the river. They were creating room for the river. They stopped using of dikes because we use dikes to manage flood. They stopped using of dikes for the past 20 years. They don't use dikes again. They create room for the river. They had a reservoir. When it is full, everything is going inside there. After the time of the whatever, they open it again and start coming out. These are simple technology that we can imbibe to save lives in Niger, in Benue, in Lokoja, Kogi, and so on. Lagos is a good example. We must clap for them. Is anybody from Lagos here? Anybody from Lagos attending this? We need to clap. Lagos is making progress. Yes, they have been imbibing this aspect of technology to monitor and ensure that the city grows sustainably. You have smart city planning model, technology integration. You have the Lagos intelligent transport. In fact, in Lagos, in the radio, that you inside your vehicle, they will tell you Ikeja is blocked. Please take the other roundabout and go straight to Allen Avenue. You can take decisions. That is what we are talking about. Challenges facing people planning in Nigeria, there are many. We have institutional and governance issues, and if we start that one, we cannot finish that one alone. Institutional and governance issues. So we have them. I will just mention them. I don't want to dwell on problems. Funding constraints. Thank you very much. Thank you now. So funding constraints and resource limitations. I've mentioned that earlier. Funding. Every time there's no money. Inadequate professional capacity and skills gap. This is within our purview. This is not somebody else's fault. We must be able to improve ourselves. Either you are sponsored for a workshop or you are not sponsored. As planners, you must educate yourself regularly. If not, you will not be relevant. You will not be relevant. So, inadequate professional capacity and skills. There was a particular department, I'm sorry, they were trying to look for somebody to go to UN Habitat program. They were all running away. International agency in the state. They don't want to leave physical planning. Lack of interest by some planners for training and retraining. Education is a continuous process, and we must imbibe this. Rapid urbanization and informal settlements, I've mentioned that earlier. I will only add, in the urban fringes, inability to integrate land use and further planning. We need to, there are no roads in the urban fringes at all. They are very poor, not connected. Are we going to use billions later to go and be doing urban renewal? Environmental and climate change challenges, they are here with us. I did the climate change resilience profiling for some facilities in Ondo State. And I was shocked at the data. I called the professor of meteorology, Professor Vincent Ajayi. Are you sure these things are not manipulated figures? He said no. What I saw in the next 10 years is shocking. Each island are developing in our urban centers. So you cannot do, whether you are using AC, even the AC is becoming hot. The climate change issues are, and we must address them. Public resistance and low awareness. People are not aware. Any time we are doing town planning, town hall meeting, you will see somebody raising up his hand and say, I've never heard about town planners before. But did it not happen here yesterday? Somebody rose up and said, I'm hearing of town planning for the first time. Public resistance and low awareness, they are not aware of what we can do. They see us as policemen rather than doctors. Well, we have a digital divide and technology barriers. The cost of acquiring digital tools such as GIS, 3D modeling, and smart urban centers, they are very high. But I want to assure you that states that can afford it will not regret it. And they don't let them deceive us, please. They have utilized it in economic aspect. In all states, money in taxes are being collected digitally. Are you getting my point now? You cannot go to any state now and say you want to pay physical cash. Why are we not deploying technology for physical planning departments? Why? Inadequate up-to-date spatial data makes it difficult to make informed planning decisions. Sometimes you read a report, sometimes United Nations report by some of our colleagues, and you, as a planner, you'll be questioning, can this actually be true? There are no data. And we don't want to struggle to collect those data. To collect data, you need a lot of money. People don't want to spend such money. Final word. Challenges facing physical planning services highlight the need for institutional reform, increased funding, enhanced capacity building, adoption of innovative planning approaches, adoption of multi-stakeholders approaches to ensure that planning is effective, inclusive, and sustainable. And I will just itemize those. One, we need to strengthen policy and legal framework. We need to enhance institutional capacity and regional development. We need to improve public awareness and stakeholders' participation in every plan project we do. I mentioned Kobo Collect. Those that are interested, they can join a group. I will set up a group. We can teach ourselves how to use the Kobo Collect seamlessly. Sustainable financing and resource mobilization. You know, government should allocate sufficient funds, yes. Adopt public-private partnership, yes. Collaboration with private sector developers, yes. Seek funds from global institutions like World Bank, UN Habitat, and African Development Bank. These funds are available. I did the resettlement action plan for Ekiti State. The farmers, 197 farmers have been paid 1,450,000,000 2 weeks ago. I was in Oka when they were paid. 1,450,000,000 naira as compensation. It is in the policy of AFDB to pay all displaced persons. They call it involuntary displaced persons. Not only pay for land, they pay for land, they pay for the things on it, they even pay for the hunters that will not have access to that place. Go and check it, their policy. Very comprehensive. But land use act say you cannot pay for land. They paid for land in Ekiti State. 1,450,000,000 were given to 196 project affected persons. I have their list. They are even calling me. Some of them that didn't get their money for one reason or the other. But what happens at different state levels? We must try and get these funds. The president of the bank is from Nigeria. He is interested in giving funds, but you must come forward with proposals. Let's go back and initiate proposals for the state governors to take AFDB funds for flooding issues, to solve flooding, to create commercial hub zones and so on. Sorry. Lastly, leveraging technology and so on. There's no time. I'm not talking to novice. We are all professionals, and I know that we can look at that paper and gain from it. But I would like to say, don't let us also forget engaging in international conferences. World Urban Forum is the cheapest to go to. You don't need anything to attend World Urban Forum. Make yourself available. I think the next one is coming up very soon, Abi, in Baku. So let's try and attend international conferences to inform that. Let us look at marine spatial planning, MSP. Yeah. All right, so I'm been told that I need to just go to the final word and final word and final word. A professor prepared these 77 slides. So to present 77 slides in 40 minutes, I'm doing my best, but there's no excuse for that. The papers are available with you, ladies and gentlemen. You can go into it and then get informed. Final thoughts, a vision for the future. Physical planning must become an active force in shaping sustainable, inclusive, and resilient communities. For relevance and enhanced income, planners should key into the emerging new frontiers in planning. Preparation of RAP, the Settlement Action Plan, MSP, DM, urban crime management, urban management and planning regeneration. They are all issues within our purview. NITP must champion this transformation and ensure that planning remains relevant and impactful in addressing 21st century and urban and regional planning challenges. Thank you.
A round of applause for the presenter, please. Thank you so much, Dr. Bolabo. You presented this paper so well that it doesn't look like you are not the one person that made the paper. He presented on physical planning services beyond the preparation of master plans and schemes. We are going ahead immediately to call on the second presenter, who is going to present on the topic, developing technical skills in the provision of environmental services for the oil and gas and international finance corporations funded projects in Nigeria. He's no other person but Professor Meshak Ojile of the Department of Environmental Management, Niger Delta University, Wilberforce Island, Bayelsa State. You are welcome, sir. A round of applause for him, please.
Thank you, MC. Good afternoon, town planners. Yes, 40 minutes. I will be resting on already established protocol. I will speak like the first professor. I will keep to my time. I am assigned to speak on the topic, what kind of skills do we have to develop to come to speed with the current circumstances in offering environmental management services as town and urban planner, particularly to oil and gas industry and ILC-funded projects. The next slide, please. Okay, let's go to the introduction. Why do we have to be where we are now in terms of environmental management? Of course, many of us will recall many years ago, to be specific, June 1992, the world gathered in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to hold what we call the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. And one of the key points in that conference was a document that was titled the Agenda 21 Conference, or document. What was the agenda all about? That document called on industry to be more resource-friendly and reduce the impact on the environment. And how do we do that? To implement more proactive measures, including employing technology and voluntary initiatives to make sure their impact, their footprint on the environment is minimized. That document also called on government to bring up regulations to enforce laws. Because human being is like a tortoise. Unless you put fire on top of a tortoise, you will never leave a spot. Yes, please go on. So, we now know that industrialization is one key indicator that is used to measure the development of economies. Economies that are 75% industrialized are usually called developed economies. While those that are 70% and up into agriculture are said that are developing. So all of us need to climb the ladder like what happens in Europe and America to develop, to industrialize. Unfortunately, industry has not been too friendly with the environment. In the course of their actions, their businesses, the environment has always been trampled upon because their production processes have not been so efficient. So they release pollutants, waste into the land, into our air, wherever, and endangering human lives. That has been what is happening. But then, we are lucky. To an extent, human beings are always evolving. Our awareness on the environmental issue has heightened. It has heightened. To that extent, we are also having the knowledge and of course the technology now to tackle environmental issues. Be that as it may, the oil and gas industry, for example, they are in a quagmire because we need this oil to drive our economy. The demand for energy is increasing. How do they balance now this demand with regulations? That is where you and I come in. We can offer advisory services to them as people who are competent to do so. Talking about the oil industries, let's go on to the oil and gas that is of interest to us. Read that. Bring it down. Yeah, bring it down, yes. Sorry, it is not too clear here. In the previous two, they have to be clearer. The oil and gas industry, as we know them, we'll probably be far from them, what happens in the Niger Delta, is subdivided into upstream, downstream. The upstream has to do with searching for the oil through the technology called seismic activity, where our land has been parceled out, like we have our farmland and we are farming here. And when a land is parceled out, geophones are laid and shots are fired to get sounds underground. This sounding will give information whether there is oil or gas underground. After discovering oil, it goes down to developing it. The oil has to be developed. First, appraisal. How much oil do we have in the reservoir? Can it be economically produced? Because it takes a lot of money, dollars, to actually produce oil. After it has been produced or it's confirmed, you do exploration drilling. You occupy a land space. You are urban planners. A single location can consume for an oil well drilling between 4,000 to 15,000 square meters. Because a flow station has to be built. The oil has to be drilled and pumped through pipelines. The oil has to be processed, removing water from crude and all of those. When it has been produced, it goes down to a refinery. From refinery, through pipelines and all that, then they are refined, they are sent, petrol and all of those trucks, delivering and all that for us to consume. When they do this, what happens? Next slide. We have environmental and social risk associated with all these activities. From the scientific I talk about, where land has to be cut through, you have what is called fragmentation of holdings. Access to our bushes, our farms is made. Hunting is made. Resources are destroyed. These are big losses for you and I. When it comes to the exploration drilling I talk about and all that, the same process, waste will be produced because they have to use chemicals to pump the oil out of the oil bore. Sometimes, if they are not well treated, this will be disposed into your environment and our ecosystem is impacted. But because of human ingenuity, we have controls in place. For example, for your seismic activity, do a lot of land minimization. Do not take too much land. In the course of drilling, the same land minimization. That's why they can drill 10 oil wells from the same location through directional drilling. These are controls. But we know we are all human beings. Errors do happen. For the social aspect, you may have heard wherever oil has been discovered in the desert, there has never been peace. There has never been peace. Because brothers are at daggers drawn. But we get the land, not you get time. My family. They begin to call in. You were slaves, you were born, you were not born here and all that. Families, community begin to fight for ownership of the land. Of course, during seismic activities, a lot of people are sent out to go and look for this oil. As they are going and living, they are leaving behind pregnant girls and women. Because they have a lot of money that is paid at that time. There are many in my community who don't have fathers. The people have called their Abuja, they are gone. The women are carrying baby in their hand. These are some of the impacts that happen. So, for them to be more resource efficient and environment friendly, they need advices and in form of consulting. Both to manage their waste, to comply with regulations, and all of those. Go down. IFC, the Fumini International Finance Corporation, is an arm of the World Bank. They are also into projects in the whole of Africa, including Nigeria. They sponsor agricultural projects. They sponsor infrastructural projects, road, railway, all of those. They also sponsor social projects to make women more accessible, even in the value chain of agriculture, all of those. All of these activities they sponsor, just like any other project, have social and environmental risk. How do we control this risk? What is the rationale? As a country, we subscribe to international conventions. So, we have a lot of regulations on ground to guide project development. You may recall, way back as 1987, when we were still blind, the Italians, out of our ignorance, came with 2 containers of toxic waste and dumped in Cocoa Town. Cocoa is in Delta State. It's a port town. Why the waste lasted? Because it was toxic. It was that emitting rays and radiation. People were getting sick, mana and co. Thankfully, that was military era. By the time the report got to Babangida, they had to compel the Italians to evacuate the waste. It was after that Nigeria now developed the first policy in 1989, National Policy on Environment. To make sure the policy works, they established Federal Environmental Protection Agency, FEPA, which came out with other regulations, including our first EI Act of 1992. That EIR requires that for any project to be implemented, whether by a private organization, public organization, it has to conduct environmental impact assessment. For you as town planners, perhaps you don't know, the plans that you make, physical plans that you make, they are not projects yet. They are policy documents. And they have their rules too. You are supposed to be driving government to conduct strategic environmental assessment. Policies, plans, programs are subjected to SEA. What are the implications of this initiative that you are thinking about? That's an area that will benefit us, all of us here. Well, like I was saying, our regulations are many that should guide environmental management in Nigeria. As of 1999, we transited to democratic rule. FEPA was subsumed into the Federal Environment, which is the apex ministry that takes care of policies and the management of the Nigerian environment. Out of Federal Environment, others like NOSDRA, NEDRA, all of those have come about. They have their laws. All of these laws require that any project anywhere in Nigeria must be subjected to environmental impact assessment. The IFC, they have 8 performance standards. Standards that you as a consulting firm must be abreast with. From conducting assessments, to looking at hiring of labor, looking at cultural heritage, land and its acquisition, indigenous people, biodiversity, resource efficiency, all of those, they are stricter than Nigeria. These are laws that you must comply with for you to be a consultant. But then, who is fit to be into the consulting room? For you to be a consultant, it means you have some skills, you have some knowledge, you have some training that you possess to render. I mentioned in the oil and gas, there is a problem of waste management. What can you do in that area? There's a problem of oil spills that ravages the environment. What can you do there? Assessment. Post-spill assessment. What of after cleanup? What can you and I do? Remediation. What of making sure that the laws that requires that a company must comply with A, B, C are followed? Regulatory compliance. You can advise. These are all areas of environmental consulting. But then, like I said, you must have the skills. Apart from the knowledge that you have in your training, you must also be exposed to other soft and hard skills. The hard skills are the skills that can make you more competent. For example, first, are you registered as an individual or your firm with the regulatory bodies? We know how to establish our businesses. And each business ought to be established with the CAC first. Then you register with Friends of Environment. Then you register with, I have a regulation here, oil and gas. For now, or since 2021, about our former Department of Petroleum Resources have been split up into NUPROC, National or Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Commission, and Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Agency. All of them have their laws and rules that you must be abreast with. So one of the important things that you must possess as a prospective environmental consultant is that you are aware of the existing regulations. If you are aware, then you belong to not just NITP. There are environmental professional bodies. I just mentioned two. The Premier, Nigerian Environmental Society. They are everywhere, including this BENUE state. That particular organization has now established Institute of Environmental Protectioners of Nigeria, IEPN. Just about a month ago, we got our seal. I can now start my report as an environmental practitioner. We also have Nigerian Environmental Practitioners Association of Nigeria, IEPN. That one is there. When you belong to all of these and you attend their workshops and seminars, you upskill yourself. Then, the use of up-to-date gadgets and technology. My predecessor had mentioned many of them. We are all town planners here. So I want to believe all of us are abreast with AutoCAD. All of us are abreast with GIS. All of us are abreast with global mapping. What about project management? What of Microsoft Excel for us to put our project planning into perspective? What other skill? Budgeting. In environmental consulting, budgeting is very complex. If you don't budget for every element, you will go to the field and begin to play pranks. Environmental consulting involves field-based study. You have to gather data from the field. So if you are expected to budget for 50 soil samples, 100 water samples, measuring air quality at about 10 places, and you do half, you will not have representative results. And because you budget well, you will be using wax. And when you use quacks, you will have quackery. The reports will be rejected by the regulators. We do assess reports the way we assess other things that you do. They are marked A, B, C. Pass, excellent, A, excellent, B, pass, up to C. Beyond that, if you do a report for a client and the client goes to present it to the environment or the oil and gas industry and you are found wanting, you can be blacklisted. You can be blacklisted. Then you can also get yourself certified in other areas. As I mentioned, soft skills as time planners. How do you communicate? Communication skill. What about team spirit? Can you work with a team? Are you the type that say, my opinion is always the best? No, it should not be. I have mentioned several of the skills that are in the paper that is in your hand. That you have, there are about 22 or thereabout skills. Nobody is expected to have all of them. But if you really want to venture into the environmental management space, then you must be abreast with some of these skills that I'm talking about. First of all, knowledge is power. You don't have to be an urban planner, then you rest your oars. You can do a master's and all of those to get more knowledge. Or a certificate course. There are several that are ongoing to up your game. I also mentioned you must be very familiar with reading maps because we collect samples from the environment and these are maps. The average town planner is good at reading maps. You also prepare maps. We use remote sensing imageries. But thankfully, with drones now, we can even capture the area we are mapping. Hire a drone to fly over an area for you. It will translate into a map. Or Google Mapper can provide you information that you can use to do your work. Some of them, please go on. Yes. Microsoft Word, or Microsoft Excel and all that. The Excel spreadsheet is an important tool that all of us have to be used to. Because it's already a table, a spreadsheet that you can easily impute your data, and there are formulae involved in calculations. Once you are used to it, it makes work easier for you and I. Go up. I mentioned, come down. Yes. Microsoft Project. This is also an app that will enable you to manage your project. More like a Gantt chart. Your work can be divided into phases. In month 1, month 2, and all that, how far can I go with my work? Other skills that we cannot forget to acquire have to do with timeliness in delivering our projects. Most projects are time-based. So if you enter the environmental consulting space, a client will tell you, can you deliver this project in 6 months? Taking cognizance of the fact that environmental sampling has to be 2 seasons most times, for comparison's sake, the dry and the wet. Will you be able to meet up 6 or 7 months time, deliver this report to us? No worry, I go do it. No worry, I go do it. Then 6 months elapses, And the client is now calling you, Ojile, where are you with your report? Ojile, where are you with your report? I'm not sure any client will be happy with that. You have become a failure. You can be blacklisted. What about delivery of work in a safe manner? In a safe manner. HSC, health, safety, and environment are like triplets. No company or client will want to hear you have a fatality or you have accident in the course of executing your job. You will write letters upon letters. I have the privilege, opportunity, I have consulted for quite many. Dangote, who is located in Lagos, had problems receiving funds for their financials because they had fatalities. In Port Harcourt, there's a chemical company there that somebody died, and for 3 months they couldn't do any work because AFDP keep asking questions. When a sponsor of a home dies and he has a family, a wife, a son, or a daughter, you will have a lot to explain. You must have the resources to sustain that woman and the child up to when he or she becomes employable. And if he or she becomes employable, you must provide employment for the person. Because you have caused the demise of the breadwinner in the house. Town planners. What I am saying is that, go up. There are skills that you and I must develop or upskill so that we can up our ante. Let me just mention a few over here. Yes, I want to talk about project management. You must manage your project well. Communication is a soft skill. What about analytical skill? Can you interpret your data that you have gotten from the field? Like I said, we often do field data gathering. And when you come back, the soil or water samples collected or the air you measure is analyzed. And if you see aberration in your results, how do you explain it? Can you explain why groundwater here is polluted and it's not polluted in XYZ area? That is an analytical skill. What about being familiar with sustainability principles? That is the key word now. Sustainability. What is it all about? Of course, we all know that the sustainability principle talks about we doing no harm to the environment, leaving resources for our children, so that they will come and receive them. But we have gone beyond that now to ESG, environment, social, and governance. How is the organization going about that? What can you do to help them achieve ESG capability? That is a skill. If you have it, very good for you. We are talking about GIS, yes. We are talking about compliance. Helping companies to meet up with compliance. That is also a skill that gets into analysis. You go out, you are consulting for a firm, and a firm asks you for monitoring of their operations. And you find out that their parameters are overshooting what is of standard practice. WHO, UNEP, Nigeria, have standards that your results must compare with. If they are overshooting, are you going to doctor your result to suit them? You and I know that integrity matters in professional practice. So are you going to make them comply with what ought to be? I talk about software. I also talk about waste management as an area that we can delve into. Like I said, either you carve out a niche for yourself because ordinarily town planners are more in the social domain. But some of us have also other skills in other areas. We are broad. So you can come in either as a social impact assessor, or you have a friend. You know, like 1 or 2, I met a couple of them who are my friends now, who said, I have a friend, I want to go into environmental practice. Can I get in touch? And I'll be having calls. So if you have a firm, are you the sole operator of that firm? Because no one single person can do environmental impact assessment. Too. No one single person. That is not true. No matter how small the project may be, you will need a minimum of 4 or 5 persons who have their specialty areas. If you think you want to cut costs on only you handle soil, only you handle water, only you can handle air and all that, the ministry will frown at it. Or NEPROC will frown at it. How can only you do all of it? You cannot be master of none. Oh. So if you have a firm, no matter how small, please have what we call retainership consultant that you can call upon when you secure a job. I'll talk about budgeting. For you to do work in the environmental space, please be abreast with what it takes to mobilize a team to the field, to demobilize a team from the field, to go into the laboratory for analysis, do a report. It can take 1 year to finish a project. And all this time, if you borrow money from the bank, you will be paying interest. So I am sure all of us want to be most efficient in what we do. Please go to the concluding part. Where am I, man? Please. Go to the conclusion. Yes. So, the oil and gas industry has several layers and types of projects implemented all year round. From the one I listed, seismic, appraisal, exploration, drilling, to processing and all of those. They are all projects. And all of them have risk, social and environmental, attached to them. The projects at different scales have negative externalities which have to be managed. Project owners seek out competent professionals. You must beat yourself as a competent professional in whatever you do. Then, of course, individuals too, some of us have a niche. If you carve a niche for yourself, good enough. You are a town planner or urban planner, but this is the area where you have your strength. You will be recognized. I think one of our fellows here did sabbatical in Shell. Yes, like I did my sabbatical in Shell because I have a strength in some area. And we need people to come and advise us. We advise when you go to Shell, you become an advisor. Then of course, project proponents must adhere to requirements of ERA Act and international best practices. The World Bank, the IIC, the Equator Principle, African Development Bank, they have their principles. I'm rounding up. Like I said, environmental impact assessment or ESIA is for proposed projects. Projects that are proposed to be implemented. They are not meant for completed projects. If somebody has done a project and is calling you, "Oga, come and help me, I want to do an EIA." It is not EIA at that point in time. It is an environmental evaluation study. Because already the work has been done. So your work as a professional will be to evaluate the impacts that facility may be causing to the environment. Yes. Professional environmental service providers must have the requisite technical skill to guide the oil and gas industry or companies. Go up. I'm rounding up. Yes. To be able to do that knowledge, to be able to do that, you must have knowledge about the environmental regulations that are up to date. Such individuals and firms must be fully registered with the CAC, I said that before, the oil and gas, and the regulators. They must be professional members of relevant associations, MITP, NES, AIN, all of those. That will give you some enhancement. Of course, for environmental sustainability, IC standards must be also be known. Seekers of our services, those who seek our services, require us to be efficient, they require us to be effective, to use the right tools, and of course, be familiar with existing environmental regulations and regulars, and to be timely in delivering our project. If we have all of this, good luck to us, we will be very good in doing consultancy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ojile. You did a very wonderful work on this paper, and he kept to the time, even left some seconds. Thank you very much. A hand of applause for him, please. We'll be going straight ahead to call on the presenter of the third paper. The paper is written by Dr. Daniel Adamu of the Sorry, I have just been informed by the national president that we'll take a break of 5 minutes so that we'll stretch our legs and then converge later. Thank you. A break of just 5 minutes, please.
Even your day ones were supposed to get your back, sometimes they was the fight. And everybody has an opinion, and you supposed to live your life. And even people were supposed to show you the road, and the people they like bite. Don't be bad on the people. Sometimes I rest in my mind, sometimes I rest in behind, sometimes I would like to say no. Sometimes I don't know what's out of my head, I just don't know what to tell me insane. So if you see me outside, I don't preach you no back, stop on my head, you fool. I'm not how you want the level. Now this house is like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, our professional colleagues, planners, please can you come inside? We want to begin. Please come in. Can we be seated, please? Please get seated. We want to start the next presentation, please. Those outside, kindly come inside, and those standing should kindly sit down. Yes. Can you sit down, please? Please, let's be seated, please. Let's be seated. The next paper, which is a top paper in this program, is written by Dr. Daniel Adamu of the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Environmental Management, Nasarawa State University. And this paper is to be presented by Patrick Nyam of the FCTA, Development Control. Please, a hand of applause for him as he comes out to present the paper.
Okay, I assume we are all together. As you heard from the introduction, I'm presenting this paper on behalf of Town Planner Daniel Adamu. He called in late in the evening to say he wasn't well, So even as we're here, let's pray for his quick recovery. For those that are sitting behind, or even those that are close by but don't have good eyesight, let me mention again that the last speaker is not our Professor Timothy Gise. I'm sure a lot of you would think he was the one because of the startling resemblance, even from the tone of his voice. So, again, he was Professor Meshach Ojile and not our own Professor Timothy Gise. A round of applause for him, please. Unlike the first paper that was 47 slides, this one is 25 slides. So we'll be very fast in it. The first 15 slides is about the literature concerning the topic. So I'll run through that. I'll not be too fast because my professor is here, my supervisor is here. I cannot afford to be making errors on the topic that I'm supposed to be familiar with. I will take the remaining 15 minutes to go slowly through the ideas that Dr. Adamu conceived and wants to present to us. Very interesting ideas. So we'll go through them slowly. I won't run through them. Okay, so by way of introduction, there was a study commissioned by the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, about the performance of projects conceived by the federal government from 1960 to 2012. And surprisingly, there was 63% failure. And out of the recommendations from that study were some of the issues that are going to be, or that affect the paper that we're presenting today. Ideas about multi-stakeholder approach, collectivism, and the scale of federal government projects. Now, the idea of a multi-stakeholder approach is that of identifying engaging, and of course collaborating with the parties or agencies or companies that are involved in a particular project for the purpose of getting the best out of it. Okay, let me just say the goal of this paper is to provide conceptual understanding as well as the practical knowledge to the need for multi-stakeholder approach in project development and implementation in Nigeria, and the role of town planners, town planning organizations. Government and governance. Most of us are familiar with this. Government is the structure, the power, the authority to take decisions and actions on behalf of the people. While governance is the activity involved in doing this. The activity involved in doing this. Whether democratic or non-democratic, government is government. However, governance is not governance. In a democratic setting, we want to involve the private sector, the non-governmental organizations, the civil society, and almost all involved, giving them equal opportunity to bring forth ideas on how best to bring forth an idea or a plan or a project, how best to implement it, to conceive it and to implement it. Now, that is unlike what we have in non-democratic settings, where they conceive and implement even before you know it. Collaborative governance. Well, it's an idea that came up when the discussion on governance started coming up. And this is what I had mentioned earlier about identifying the stakeholders concerning the project and how to best engage them and how to collaborate with them to make sure that what has been conceived is implemented in the best way possible with the resources available. This is the framework for collaborative government. We have the government, the industry, and the society. The industry here is talking about the private sector, and the society here is represented mostly by the civil society, including people like us, the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. More about the framework. Still talking about effective governance and how professional bodies are involved in this. Like we saw from the framework that I passed, the arm concerning the society talks more of where institutions like the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners can be involved. They gave an example of how governance have evolved in Nigeria in terms of policy, example of how during the Babangida era we had the structural adjustment program. The program was more to enforce on the nationalistic policies that we had in the economy. We wanted to hold on to corporations, economic corporations, economic power in the state. And when Obasanjo came, he brought in liberalization, privatization, commercialization. In other words, he wanted to open the space for the private sector to come in with their resources. The wealth should spread around, and the government should not be the only ones to hold strong on the economy of the state. We saw how NITEL was sold out, and companies like MTN, Econet, Globalcom came into during the deregulation of the communication sector. In terms of policy, we have a mention of policy on projects. Of course, the sale of NITEL was the project, and the establishment of those communication sectors was the project there. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. Synergy. How do professional organizations like the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners synergize with sister organizations, civil society organizations, and even the private sector to, first of all, meet the goals of the state, meet the goals of government, and at the same time benefit from it. So, he has mentioned through collaborative governance and the three pathways to establishing synergy is a policy, public service initiatives, and collaborations and partnerships. Concerning policy influence, industry-specific experts offer valuable insights on policies. In other words, the private sector are seen as the expert in issues of economic development. They are the ones that are interested in seeing the profits that they will get in delivering services to the public. And so they know how best to do it. They have the expertise. And therefore, we must pay attention to them as critical stakeholders. Then we have the advocacy and reform. That's push for change. Advocacy, this is where we come in. As a civil society organization, this is where we come in to make sure that as much as we want to give the private sector space to do their thing, we are seen protecting the public so that they don't, what's the word there? They don't explore. They don't exploit the members of the public to, economically to their disadvantage. And then at the same time, meet the goals of government. Then stakeholder engagement, of course, to collaborate among these three arms. The second point there is the public service initiatives. Skill development and training. That is a partner for skills and scale ups. Research and innovation. To conduct research for innovation, of course. Then community engagement. Outreach programs and shared responsibility. For instance, the town hall meeting that was held yesterday. This is what we're talking about. Collaborations and partnerships. Joint projects and initiatives. Data sharing and analysis. Continuous improvement. So before we synergize, let's clean up. Interpersonal relationships between and among planners in MDAs need to be intentionally worked on. This brings to mind some of the issues that we have among planning agencies within a state or even nationally. But I expected to relate for a common goal. Let me give a quick example. In the FCT, for instance, we have the FCT Department of Development Control controlling all physical development in the FCT. We also have the Federal Housing Authority, who are the building arm, the housing arm of the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. They have very large chunks of land in the FCT, and although they come to the FCT for preliminary policy engagement on how they should go about developing their land, the FCT also have overriding development control functions over them. They have their own Department of Development Control, and they are supposed to design and ensure that plans are implemented in line with their designs and in line with the policies agreed with the FCT Development Control. Sometimes we have conflicts of interest. Sometimes. For instance, where areas are zoned for residents and there is need to introduce some commercial activities in those areas. The FCT administration expects that such amendments are brought to them. The FHA assume that it is within their power to assess the workability of such amendments and for them to implement them. So you see, these are areas that need to work out, and this is what we are talking about here. Interagency collaborations. Then we have the Professional Code of Conduct requires strengthening and strict adherence. Of course, we do have a Professional Code of Conduct, but the one we have is developed by the Town Planners Registration Council of Nigeria, and deals with only professional matters. At the moment, the NITP have seen the need to develop one that may deal with matters that may not strictly be professional, but that affect the image and performance of the institute. And so that point too is very critical. We have continuous capacity building for planners through training. Institutions must be redefined to attract passionate individuals who truly see planning as a core and not merely just jobs for survival. This is a difficult one. Reason being that even as we're seated here, not many of us knew that we were going to become town planners, and I'm one of them. Okay, I'm one of them. I discovered town planning when I was in the university, when I was already admitted in the university. That was when I knew about town planning. Now, how easy will it be for the rest of our children? That is why the tax is upon us to bring awareness about town planning from the grassroots. Chapters are called to bring awareness to primary schools, to secondary schools, so that our children begin to understand that to have a functional living environment, town planning is a critical profession. Continuous capacity building, like what we're having now, the MCPDP. So let me move forward to, we've spoken a little about this, so let's go to where he raised very critical issues that we okay, from here. These are the ideas that Dr. Adamu brought forward. The first is that the NITP and TOPREC should urgently consider the formation of the Nigerian Planners Partnership Working Group to spearhead synergy efforts with the federal, state, and local governments. This is very innovative. What's he saying? That the NPPWG headquarters should be domiciled at the National Secretariat and state chapters. And state chapters should equally be made to establish same. For instance, he said there should be an Osun Planners Partners Working Group, Anambra Planners Partnership Working Group, like that. And for BENUE, it should be BENUE Partnership Working Group, Planners Partnership Working Group. Key responsibility of this new initiative will be to carry out inventory of projects identified for funding through the medium-term expenditure frameworks and the yearly national, state, and local government capital expenditure budgets. In other words, they are supposed to scout for jobs. With the aid of spatial analytics softwares, they are supposed to map the locations of proposed projects at national, regional, state, local governments, and where possibly at community levels. B, to identify whether projects have been carefully planned for through a planning document, that is master plan, structural plan, and action plans, etc., and advise appropriately. C, identify responsible MDAs, host communities, key community stakeholders for each identified project. D, initiate and sustain working relationship with the MDAs, host communities, key community stakeholders. And C, provide professional services and advice through advocacy efforts. F, act as independent project monitoring and evaluation committee within their jurisdictions of operation. Identify project timelines and create reminder prompts to keep updating the public and flag warning signals where necessary. H, in partnership with the MDAs, publish quarterly, annual, and midterm reports of the state of proposed, existing, and similar projects, establishing level of progress and identifying uncompleted ones within the same jurisdictions, as well as performers by MDAs. And I cooperate with fellow professional bodies for accountability in quality of projects delivered by professionals. Now, the second idea he brought up was the establishment of Nigerian Planners Central Project Tracking Dashboard. What is it supposed to do? This will be a virtual and online dashboard that will source its data from the items that were identified earlier on. They are also supposed to do what? Should link with social media handles for publications of processed and useful information to trigger public engagement and discuss around project performance, actors, roles, and performances. Incorporate and enhance project performance report in the quarterly media chat and press conference engagement of the president of NITP and TOPREC. Of course, we know that the presidency, the NITP presidency have quarterly publications, so these are supposed to be mentioned in such conferences. To attract the MDS into valuing our partnership drive, it is critical to generate public traction through the activities of the MPPWG. Through this, the MDS can be influenced to share information, become more accountable, and sustaining influence over their activities and decisions. For instance, the Brekete Family Radio. That is a very popular radio station. I don't know if it reaches some parts of BENUE, but it's very popular around Abuja and environs. Identify sustainable funding mechanisms for continuous synergy with MDS. For instance, grants from national, international, and multinational organizations. B, budgetary provision from TOPREC and NITP budget. And of course, donations from members. And of course, non-members, those who are the profession's well-wishers. To collaborate with politicians, and here in brackets, I think what it means to say here is members of the institute that are into politics, because we have some of our members that are elected officials of our states and even at the federal level. Excuse me. Politicians are very crucial actors whose activities greatly influence the conceptualization, development, and delivery of projects. To a large extent, in Nigeria today, it is the politicians who identify projects, influence their inclusion through MDAs, and direct constituency platforms for legislative appropriation purposes. It is mostly the projects that they are interested in that gets good and sustainable funding. Dealing with and getting the attentions of politicians requires a mixture of carrot and stick approach. Politicians will naturally gravitate their loyalty towards places where their interests are protected or where threats to their continuous political life can be activated. I think this point is as literal as it sounds. So what's the way forward? NITP to remain apolitical, in other words, not to engage in politics, and strategically court public followership, identify with highly promising nationalistic politicians who have built recognizable and worthy character through their antecedents and influences on the public. Actively partner such politicians across political party lines by providing relevant spatial data on public projects that will enhance their manifestos and political decisions during the campaign periods. This is very important. I mean, if we're active about the issues earlier raised, predicting where projects will head, detailing the activities that will lead to their implementation, and taking those details to these politicians, we will get a buy-in, not only for ourselves personally, but for the profession, and of course for the members of the public. Thirdly, through the NPPWG, help communities to identify projects built in the yearly budget for their communities. 4, institute incentive mechanisms for good performance. The NPPWG to provide useful information to the general public on the performances of politicians who have significantly influenced quality and effective project delivery. Develop a credit point system through community-driven evaluation. The Nigerian Planner Central Project Tracking Dashboard should incorporate a credit system through a voting platform with points mechanism. In conclusion, synergizing is at the root of collaborative governance. A call for synergy must definitely be understood in the context of the susceptibility of the existing government's realization of the beneficial role of collaborating with non-governmental actors or non-government actors. In essence, it must come from the humble realization that government alone cannot do it all. Synergizing or collaborating is not necessarily a declaration of weakness, but the realization that collective strength is the greatest. When government, industry, and society effectively collaborate, there is nothing capable of escaping this tripod. This trial is practically the way forward in redefining governance in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Town Planner Patrick Nyam, for the last paper. Can we have a round of applause for Town Planner Patrick Nyam, a fellow of the Institute and the former National Secretary of the Institute. I've been told that the three papers that have been presented, we are supposed to have the technical session tomorrow. In the interim, if there are a couple of questions that we would like to ask the presenters for now, also bearing in mind that tomorrow we'll have a thorough discussions of these papers. If there are quick questions we want to ask the three presenters, we can take this opportunity now to ask them. Of course, there will be thorough discussions of those papers tomorrow, but if there are a couple of questions we feel we can ask them just for now, the opportunity is now. So if you have any question, you raise your hand up, the mic will be given to you, and you put a question to any of the papers that's been presented today, and the resource persons can briefly talk about them, while tomorrow we'll now have a thorough discussions of all the papers. So the opportunity is now open for brief questions and observations or comments you want to ask. It's up to the audience now. If you have any question, comment, or anything you want to say. No comment, no question. Okay, that's fine. So,
thank you for the opportunity to say something. Mine is not a question, but it's a contribution. Firstly, on the first paper, beyond master planning. I was thinking that if we are actually looking beyond master planning itself, there's something that we often forget as town planners. And that thing is looking at ourselves beyond the master plan. Our image as town planners, the public image that we have, is horrible, to say the least. The public has almost lost confidence in us as town planners. And that is something that we need to look at, beyond the master plan. What does the public think of us? What does the public think of us? Maybe our plans are being rejected because of who we are, not what we have presented, to the public. Can we, I think what we should be talking more about is restoring our confidence, restoring public confidence in what we do. Have you ever thought or wondered why, the urban and regional planning law, which the federal government enacted in 1992, and it has not itself instituted part of the institutions that are supposed to, leverage, to leverage planning forward. Have we ever thought about that? It's more than 30 years. This was an executive bill that the government itself brought. And up to now, we're still talking, the planning commission that is supposed to be set is not there. Why is that so? And I think if the frontiers of planning or urban and regional planning, if we are to explore new frontiers, one of the areas that we need to explore is the legislative area, the legislative framework, the administrative framework. Because we're not going to extend the frontier, by leaps and bounds. If we do that, certainly there will be gray areas in between. And I was thinking that it would be a progressive thing for us as town planners to ensure that these institutions are there in place before we can talk about, yes, okay, beyond the master plan, yes. Are the institutions there? The local governments, do we have them? I know in my state that there's not a single authority at the local government level. There's not a single one. So how can we talk about, extending the frontier when the institutional requirements are not in place? They are not there. So there are legislative requirements that we need to look at critically. In fact, the urban and regional planning law itself needs to be looked at because there's too much emphasis on development control. There is more to planning than development control. In fact, development control is contingent upon the existence of a plan. Otherwise, your control is nothing. That is what you are seeking to control, development to fit into the plan. Now, we don't have such structures. So, development control. The legislation talks about a Department of Development Control, but does it talk about Department of Master Planning? Does it talk about regional planning? It's only mentioned them, just listed them. If the frontiers of planning must be extended, then we will have to look at those areas. Because we cannot, and for us planners, we downplay all the other aspects of planning because development control is very lucrative for us, personally. So, we are development control planners without plans. So how can we control development? How can we extend the frontiers or explore new frontiers? When the structure, any new frontier that will be extended has to be within the framework of the law. It has to be within the framework of the administrative structure. It cannot be outside. Then you are not extending any frontier. But if the law itself and the structure itself is faulty, and if we ourselves have lost confidence before the public, then I want to assure you that whatever we are doing, we will not go far. And then on the last paper, the last paper, it talks about collaboration and so on and so forth. Collaborative effort. Yes, it is essential. It is essential. When I was in school, I was taught that the master plan is called master plan simply because it is everybody's plan. It is Water Board's plan, it is NEPA's plan, it is Ministry of Education's plan, it is everybody's plan. That is why it is called master plan. But have we been able to bring them in? Have we been able to bring them in? Because Ministry of Education is not supposed for MAKURDI master plan, for example. Ministry of Education, as far as McCarthy is concerned, is not supposed to have any other plan apart from the master plan. The master plan tells them where the schools will be located. And whether it's double stream or single stream or whatever stream, the master plan tells them what to do. But is that what is obtained? When I was general manager in Jos Metropolitan Development Board 20 years ago, I had a similar thing to what I call Infrastructure Coordinating Committee. And it came up simply because each time we construct a new road, water board will come, a very expensive asphalt road. Water board will come the next day and they will be digging across it because they are passing a 1/4-inch pipe. Or you find a house that is marked or a structure that has been marked with X, indicating that it could be demolished if the papers are not correct. You will find NEPA taking light to that same building, the water board taking water there. Where is the coordination? We're working at cross purposes. But when we instituted the Infrastructure Coordinating Committee, what happened? The GMs, they felt as if, unlike what he was saying there, instead of seeing it as a collaborative effort, they saw it as if we were challenging their authority. And what they did then was to send a confidential secretary to a very serious meeting of this nature. Or they will send somebody that cannot take any serious decision to the meeting. And that frustrated the whole effort. So until we are able to, draw these people and make them understand that the master plan is not the town planner's plan alone. Because the town planner does he lay the water pipes? Does he draw he only provides the plan. But it is these agencies that will be responsible for implementing the plan. And until we are able to convince them and make them understand this, we have not started. Thank you.
I want to thank our fellow for taking us through and further deepening the discussion on the master plan and all that. There's another hand raised up, but I also want to chip in something before I give you about the master plan thing. My is not a question per se, but just to also add a little bit into the discussion on master plan. The question is, when we say master plan, what do we mean by master plan? Are we talking about state-led master plan, the master plans that we did in the 60s, 1970s, driven by the state to develop new towns or that sort of thing? Or are we talking about the master plans that are driven by the private sector, where you have new projects that are coming in and they have master plans? Or are we talking about master plans in terms of what you call new cities? There's a new literature that's coming up, talking about new cities, talking about fantasy projects, talking about smart cities. All of these also have master plans to drive all of these. So it's also good for us as planners to know that the whole idea about master plans, we tend to see master plan as this kind of state-led, driven projects, greenfield, where you have completely new areas, they want to have master plans to build new towns and all that. The picture of master plans have transformed beyond that. Yes, we still have master plans that are being done for towns and all that, and are driven by the state. We still have master plans by private sectors, and we have master plans by big organizations who are coming into the global south, developing countries to invest, whether you call it smart city projects, fantasy projects, eco-city projects, and all that. What is important for us as planners is to see how we navigate all of these. If it's state-led projects or state-led master plans, what fellow Hayes is talking about is, what is the structure? Because you could have all the enlightened master plans that you have. If you have not dealt with the structure, the institutions that are going to implement the master plans, also a problem for us. if we have not also understood the actors who are working in these institutions, that are interests and biases, implementing this master plan is also a big problem for us. So for me, that's just what I want to add. It's good for us to know exactly what sort of master plan we're talking about and how we navigate all of this is important as we also go on with the discussion. There's another hand that was raised. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MCPDP. My name is Henry Garba, the Young Planners Forum Coordinator for Plateau State. My take is on the evolving beyond the master plan. I think it goes beyond just making master plans. We need a transition, people that can carry on the master plan. Like, from my experience as coordinator of Young Planners Forum, I see that the transition from being a young planner to a practicing planner is cumbersome. Because like on the Young Planners Forum, you can't be an official of the Young Planners Forum if you're not a registered town planner. You know, it gives a leeway that people that are supposed to garner experience, because you can't get experience because you are a professional town planner. You need to garner the experience through the ranks. So I think if we can our transition from young planners to full-fledged planners is more accommodating, so to speak. Let's say we can give people that are not registered responsibilities to learn. I think it would help us grow more and have people that will be able to sustain the master plans if and when we do them and implement them. That's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to round up in the next 5 minutes, so straight to the point, sir.
With respect to the members of the high table, my colleagues in the profession, I want to make an observation on what seems to be going on among especially in the planning profession. We discovered that especially we are talking of master plan. And these days, even the first presenter mentioned that there are many, terms that are used for the master plan. He made mention of development framework. I don't know, development framework and master plan, can one be used in place of the other? And if not, it seems the process of preparing these two fiscal development plans differs. Because in the development framework, most of the time, there is no much inclusivity. The process does not include especially other professions that are outside the planning. And in the master plan, we know it is guided by law. But the development framework, I have not come across a law that back its process. So if we want inclusivity, then to me, I want to suggest that the NITP or the top reg should have a regulatory or monitoring team to ensure that any plan prepared, master plan or development framework, whatever fiscal development plan is monitored by the team to ensure compliance of the process, to ensure inclusivity in the process. Thank you.
So we'll take the last one from our past president, Town Planner David Garver, so that there's going to be taking such a session tomorrow for all of us.
So, beyond the master plan, what is a master plan? It's a document, right? Prepared based on information of the existing situation, right? Prepared for, and then expectation of what's going to happen to guide the development of particular settlement area, be it rural or urban. I think we are going that way, right? And for any settlement, a settlement area, there must be somebody who is in charge. And who is in charge is the government. But if that's the high level, we have different levels. You can have a master plan for an institution, for a university, for a secondary school, or for a small community. But the person in charge must be what? Interested in the development of implementation of that document. Master plans are prepared in Nigeria mostly by governments. Cities are run by government authorities. In developed countries, we have mayors, or we have people in charge. In Nigeria, we have governors and what? Local government chairmen. And for it to be effective, what? You have to what? Prepare what? Legal instruments and put it into law. If you prepare a document approved by government, and that government is interested in implementing it, has no political will, what becomes of it? A useless document. We have all the master plans what? On the shelf. So you are talking about implementation, the strategies. Political will is number one. Political will is number two. Political will is number three. Without political will, you cannot do anything. You have to have people who will back it and ready to what? Defend that document when it's through process of implementation. They must be guided. There are different interest groups. Educationists, industrialists, those in entertainment area, those hoteliers. Everybody has one interest or the other. But all those interests, right, are together the what? Gathered, allowed, and coordinated by the government authority in charge of that area. We have a problem in Nigeria. Master plans are working anywhere in other parts of the world. We have a Nigerian peculiar problem. So the problem is a Nigerian problem, not master plans. We have a Nigerian problem. We have to look at the Nigerian way. So if you don't look at the Nigerian system, you will fail to develop. You can't talk about smart cities where we don't have smart Nigerians working in terms of what should be done. The smart Nigerians are doing negative smartness, but not smart positiveness. You work in development control, you work in URP department. If the minister is not interested in what you are doing, you just waste your time. So as planners, you have a lot to do. We have gone through the process, and it's getting more complicated. The young ones, you know how to do politicking. That's why somebody said yesterday, you have to walk the talk, walk with the corridors of power. If you don't have planners in the corridors of power, if you have a way a planner has close ear to the governor or somebody is calling, whatever you do is namere. So I urge us to be creative in carrying the government alone. But you have to be able to run with the hair and do what? And son with the hound. Because you have your plans and programs. But if the government does not approve for it, what do? You can't do everything. So we just pray and look at how ways you can make sure to carry the government in implementation of master plan, or else you find it very difficult. I thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in your master plan preparation, implementation, and understanding of it. Good morning, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you, sir. The bottom line is to carry the government along so that policies are implemented. Prof, okay, just 30 seconds so that Mr. President, we do the closing remark and we're done. No, Professor Lachi.
Sorry, I'm coming last. Well, what I wanted to say, I think has been said by the two elders here. The only difference is I raised this issue in Bayelsa last year at the same MCPDP. Let us be able to couch our topics and presentations in such a way that we can have specific take-homes. And then I expect that NITP, and I challenge NITP that day, can we move from this annual talk show to getting more specific variables so that maybe after 2 or 3 years, we can do a review. How much take home from the ministries, the people from ministries who are here, what have they learned from here? Now, 2 years later, can we ask them, to what extent have they implemented this in their places? How has it improved? Because we can't all be crying about master plan, is not good, is static, is that. I totally agree with what he said, because if you go elsewhere, master plan is working. So why is it not working here? So the problem actually is not master plan. And I keep asking, if I take away master plan from town planning, then what else will you be doing? So we just have to be mindful of how we present this issue. Master plan has issues because the people who are supposed to operate it are having issues. So let us address those things as our takeaway. So please, NITP Top Reg, can we couch these topics subsequently in such a way that our colleagues from the ministries can have a take-home and go back and say, I want to implement these specific skills. In the oil and gas, for example, if I am a director of town planning in a ministry, what am I going home with now that I can say, okay, gather my staff and say, look, when I went to MAKURDI, this is what we learned during the MCPDP. Can we touch down here and say, you do this, you do this, you do this? We need to get to that point where MCPDP leaves people with very specific skills, even if it is 1 or 2 items that the person is going home with. Those who didn't come can also learn. Not this general, master plan is our instrument, so we must promote it. Whatever is not working in it, whatever weakness that is in master plan, let us sit down and see how we can address it. And I think those 2 things have been addressed, ourselves and the implementers. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. We have the technical session tomorrow, so we can't take any other question. All the questions you have, keep them in mind. When we have the brainstorming session tomorrow, we'll take all of that and round up the whole discussion tomorrow. We're almost come to the end of this, so I'll invite our national president, town planner, Dr. Chimo Ogbonna, to give us a closing remark, and we'll be done for the day.
The second National Vice President of the Institute, the past President of the Institute here present, members of the National Executive Committee here, fellows of the Institute, distinguished colleagues, I want to thank every one of us for the patience. I want to thank you in a very special way because I'm certain that we're going home better than we came in terms of knowledge, because our resources, our resource persons have done very beautiful work, and I'm sure you will agree with me that things are really getting better. Let me also use the opportunity to comment on the master plan issue, and of course the implementation of Nigeria Urban and Regional Planning Law, because most speakers said we urge NITP, we urge TOPREC to do this, to do this. Yesterday I did state here that the NITP is organizing a national colloquium on the need to implement the Nigerian Urban and Regional Planning Law of 1992. You will agree with me that right from the inception, right from the promulgation of that law, we'll be making efforts as professional body to get the law implemented. Some thought it would be better for us to go to the National Assembly to effect some amendments before the law could be implemented. We tried that and it didn't work out, because at the end of the day, the bill brought back to NEC, I think that was last year, was something unimaginable. And it became clear that if we want to get the law reviewed without implementation, we might stay where we are forever. And that is why we have decided that this year, specifically by the 27th day of October this year, there is going to be a national colloquium on the need to implement the Nigerian urban and regional planning law. And I want to tell you that already a lot of work has been done. What I think is left is to present the proposal to the National Council of the Institute. The idea, as a matter of fact, is that, like somebody mentioned here, the federal government promulgated that law. The federal government is not implementing that law. The federal government knows that this law repealed every other town planning law in the country. And like what I said yesterday, if anybody is not implementing the 1992 Nigeria Urban and Regional Planning Law anywhere in the country, he is working against Nigerian government. So if the federal government that promulgated the law is not implementing it, it means the federal government is working against itself. And that is why we said there is a strong need for us to call those who promulgated the law, that officials of the federal government, call those who have been working to ensure that it is implemented, call those who are going to benefit from the early implementation of that law, call everybody to a round table discussion. And to this extent, we've contacted so many governors who are willing to attend. We've also contacted so many federal government officials who are also willing to attend, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to tell ourselves the truth. If a government comes up with a law, and this is the only law in this country that has provisions for the master plans we're talking about, and other levels of planning, other levels of plans in the country. So, and somebody also mentioned, if you leave master plan, what other tools we have as town planners? So I want to urge every one of us to get prepared, because it's not a fight one person or two can fight and win. It needs the support of every one of us. We need to begin to sing it from home, from state to the national level, so that by the time this meeting is going on, the rest of the world must have known that the Nigerian government is operating with town planning law, without town planning law. It's just as simple as that. And I'm sure no government will want to be accused, and the accusation will be right, that a government that made a law has refused to implement the law and has rather decided to work without law. No society can be governed without law. It is actually the law that makes the society what it is. So, distinguished colleagues, some of our visitors must have gone, but the truth of the matter is that this law is for all Nigerians. This law is for the benefit of all Nigerians. And like many of us did mention here, nothing works in a society, especially in the environmental society. Once you're not satisfied with the environment where you live, you will forever be unsatisfied. If you go to the office, you're unsatisfied. If you come back to the neighborhood, you're unsatisfied. So the only way out is get this law implemented. And implementing means allow the environmental experts, who are town planners, architects, land surveyors, estate managers, allow them to take charge of the environment. If experts begin to take charge of Nigerian environment, you can be sure we shall no longer be talking about flooding, because the professionals constituted in the built environment have all it takes to arrest every challenge within the environment. Having said so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank us and then expect us to come early enough tomorrow so that we round up early and then go early. God bless all of us. Thank you.
We thank the National President for the closing remark. We thank all of us that have come today for today's program. We thank the resource persons for the first paper, the second and the third papers. We thank those who have made their contributions and those who still have their contributions to make tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the technical sections where all of the papers will be discussed and will come to the way forward. There's a special announcement for fellows of the Institute, where to ensure that we have our pins on. So I don't have mine now, so But I want to promise the past president and everyone that I'm going to put my pin tomorrow. And yes, and all fellows who put their pins on, those who don't have their pins, the pins that are outside, they can pick their pins just for 3,000, and that's set to start. So we've come to the end of today. I want to thank everyone, but Olabo has a special announcement in terms of the refreshment, and I give the mic to him to take charge of that.
Well, we have finally come to the close of today's proceedings, and please check your folder. You will see your meet ticket inside. The meet ticket today is red, day one. So just bring out your meet ticket today. The color is red. That's what you are going to use to pick your food. We have designed it in such a way that you are not going to queue at that place. Just after dropping your ticket for today, the yellow one is for tomorrow. Once you drop the red ticket, then you can now signify whether you want swallow or you want rice. So, and then you are just giving, you can go and eat in your hotel. And if you want to eat here, the table is already set for that. Ladies and gentlemen, please permit the leaders of the institute to lead first. Past president, national president, other fellows of the institute should please go first and pick their lunch. It won't take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you are out of the place, then others will follow. Please, you can only pick your lunch there with the use of the ticket. So if you check your folder and you cannot find yours, please see me here immediately and let me clarify that and clear you. Tomorrow we are starting at 8 a.m. What are we doing tomorrow? Tomorrow is designed as syndicate sessions. We are going to break into 3 sessions, and you are free to choose any of the sessions that you want to participate in and contribute. So we'll break the sessions. One will be here, one will be outside at the back there, and then we have people that will coordinate that. But first, in the morning, very quickly, we are going to do a wrap-up. Our rapporteurs will give us that 5-10 minutes before we now break into those sessions. We are targeting finishing tomorrow between 12 and 12:30, so that those that want to return tomorrow can still do that conveniently. Please cooperate with us and let us achieve that. Once again, we thank you all of you for the participation of today, and we are wishing you very best in your different places as you rest tonight. But let me assure you that MAKURDI is safe, so please explore the beauty of MAKURDI. After your lunch, drive around. There are places you can visit. Enjoy the culture and hospitality of MAKURDI. Again, I thank you. Please, as you remain seated there, the national president, please go forward, sir. National president, please lead others and quickly, just for that formality, please, sir, just lead them first. When you get there, you come back. I know what to do, so that others will go to follow you. Others should remain seated. Resource person, you follow the team, the high table. So. I will change it. Okay. All right, please, just proceed. We just want the national president and then to see what you have done there. Just go. Please follow him. Fellows of the institute, please follow. Resource person, please follow quickly. Resource person, rapporteurs, please follow. And then others will now go. Just wait for me. I will announce the remaining in the next 3 minutes. Just give me 3 minutes. Let the high table go and pick something and come back. If you do not have, check your folder. If you do not find yours, please see me immediately here. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that I only have red one. I just noticed that others have yellow.
Yes, day one and day two. I'm surprised. Okay, please use this now. After, please come to me. I will give you yellow for tomorrow.